What if the real secret to slowing aging isn't hidden in expensive treatments or complicated routines, but quietly waiting in the way you spend the last 2 hours of your day? Every evening, your body enters a powerful biological window where it can either repair, renew, and slow the aging process, or silently accelerate it. As evening begins to settle, something extraordinary unfolds inside the human body. A gradual, carefully orchestrated transition from outward activity to inward repair. This shift is not random, and it is not optional. It is governed by a deeply embedded biological timing system known as the circadian rhythm, a 24-hour internal clock that has evolved over thousands of years to align human physiology with the rising and setting of the sun. Every cell in the body carries this timing, but the master conductor resides in a small region of the brain that responds primarily to light. When natural daylight fades, signals begin to travel through the nervous system, telling organs and tissues that it is time to slow down, recalibrate, and begin restoration. In modern life, however, this delicate transition is often disrupted without us realizing it. Artificial lighting, bright screens, irregular schedules, and constant stimulation confuse the brain's perception of day and night. When the brain cannot clearly distinguish evening from daytime, it delays the release of melatonin, a hormone that is far more complex than its reputation as a simple sleep aid. Melatonin acts as a biological messenger of darkness, informing every organ that the environment is safe for repair. Beyond its role in sleep initiation, it functions as a potent antioxidant that moves through tissues, neutralizing free radicals generated during daily metabolism. These free radicals are unstable molecules that gradually damage proteins, fats, and DNA. Over years, such damage accumulates and manifests as aging at the cellular level. When melatonin production is consistent and strong, this nightly wave of antioxidant protection helps limit that damage and supports cellular longevity. The timing of melatonin release is sensitive. Even small amounts of bright light in the evening can signal the brain to postpone its secretion. Blue wavelengths from digital devices are particularly influential because they closely resemble the spectrum of daylight. When exposure to these lights continues late into the evening, the brain remains in a semi-alert state, keeping the body oriented toward activity rather than repair. Heart rate may stay slightly elevated, cortisol levels may not fully decline, and the metabolic system continues operating as if the day has not yet ended. This delay in transition does not always feel dramatic in the moment, but its effects accumulate quietly over months and years. Repair processes become compressed into shorter windows, leaving less time for deep restoration. Within each cell, countless microscopic processes depend on this evening shift. DNA repair enzymes become more active during the night, scanning genetic material for errors that occurred during the day. Proteins that were damaged through metabolic activity are broken down and replaced. Mitochondria, the structures responsible for producing cellular energy, undergo maintenance that improves their efficiency and reduces the leakage of reactive oxygen species. These events are synchronized with circadian timing. When the body receives a clear signal that evening has arrived, these processes unfold in an orderly sequence. When the signal is weak or inconsistent, the sequence becomes fragmented. Some repair mechanisms may begin late, while others remain incomplete. Over time, this inconsistency contributes to the gradual decline associated with aging. Temperature regulation also plays a subtle but essential role in this transition. As evening progresses, core body temperature naturally begins to fall. This cooling is not merely a precursor to sleep. It is part of the body's strategy for energy conservation and repair. Lower temperatures support certain enzymatic activities involved in cellular maintenance and reduce the metabolic demands placed on organs. Warm lighting, calm environments, and reduced stimulation help facilitate this cooling process. Conversely, Intense physical or mental stimulation late in the evening can delay it, keeping the body in a state of readiness rather than restoration. There is also a psychological dimension to this biological shift. The brain responds not only to light but to patterns. When evenings follow a predictable rhythm, dimming lights, quieter sounds, slower movements, the nervous system begins to anticipate rest. This anticipation itself becomes a signal, allowing neurotransmitters associated with relaxation to rise gradually. Serotonin transitions toward melatonin production, and the mind begins to detach from the external demands of the day. When evenings are chaotic or unpredictable, this anticipatory relaxation does not occur as smoothly. The brain remains vigilant, subtly scanning for stimulation, which keeps stress pathways partially active. Chronic activation of these pathways maintains elevated cortisol levels that interfere with melatonin release and increase inflammatory activity throughout the body. Inflammation is one of the central biological drivers of aging. While acute inflammation is a protective response to injury or infection, chronic low-grade inflammation slowly damages tissues and accelerates degenerative processes. Evening routines that support circadian alignment help regulate inflammatory responses by ensuring that repair hormones and anti-inflammatory signals rise at appropriate times. When the body enters deep rest with sufficient melatonin and reduced cortisol, immune cells shift into maintenance mode, clearing damaged components and preparing tissues for the next day. The liver, one of the body's primary detoxification organs, also follows a circadian pattern. During nighttime hours, it increases activity related to processing metabolic byproducts and environmental toxins. This function relies on a coordinated sequence of hormonal signals that begins in the evening, when late-night stimulation or irregular schedules disrupt circadian timing. These detoxification processes may become less efficient. Over time, the accumulation of metabolic waste places additional stress on cells and contributes to the gradual decline in organ function associated with aging. Even the skin, often viewed only as an outer layer, participates in this nightly repair cycle. During evening and nighttime hours, skin cells increase production of structural proteins and initiate repair of damage caused by ultraviolet exposure and environmental stressors. Blood flow to the skin changes, allowing nutrients to reach areas undergoing renewal. These processes are enhanced when circadian rhythms remain aligned and when the body receives clear signals that evening has begun. A calm and consistent evening environment becomes a form of biological communication, informing the body that it is safe to shift resources away from external activity and toward internal maintenance. When viewed through this lens, the evening is no longer simply a period between work and sleep. It becomes a biological gateway into restoration, a carefully timed interval during which the body prepares its most powerful anti-aging mechanisms. The gentle dimming of lights, the slowing of movement, the reduction of sensory input. These are not merely lifestyle preferences, but signals that guide hormonal release, cellular repair, and metabolic balance. Each evening offers an opportunity to align with this ancient rhythm, allowing the body to enter the night prepared for the intricate work of renewal that unfolds in darkness. As the sun begins to lower and evening approaches, the body subtly changes the way it handles energy. Throughout the day, metabolism is designed for activity, movement, and intake. Hormones that regulate blood sugar and digestion operate efficiently in response to physical and mental demands. But as night approaches, the body prepares for a different role, one centered on repair, cellular maintenance, and conservation of energy. This transition is not only about sleep, it is a metabolic shift that determines how efficiently the body ages over time. One of the most important aspects of this shift involves insulin sensitivity, the body's ability to move glucose from the bloodstream into cells where it can be used for energy. During daylight hours, especially in the morning and early afternoon, insulin sensitivity is naturally higher. Cells are more responsive, and glucose is processed with relative ease. As evening progresses, however, this sensitivity begins to decline. This is not a flaw in the system, but an evolutionary design. Historically, humans consumed most of their food during daylight, when activity levels were higher and energy was required for movement and survival. Nighttime was reserved for rest and internal maintenance rather than heavy digestion. When large meals are consumed late in the evening, the body must manage glucose at a time when its ability to do so is reduced. Blood sugar levels remain elevated for longer periods, and the pancreas must release more insulin to compensate. Over time, repeated late-night eating can contribute to insulin resistance, a state in which cells respond less effectively to insulin signals. This leads to chronically elevated glucose and insulin levels, both of which are associated with increased inflammation and accelerated cellular aging. Excess glucose in the bloodstream can attach to proteins in a process known as glycation, altering their structure and function. These altered proteins accumulate and contribute to stiffness in tissues, reduced elasticity in blood vessels, and gradual deterioration in organ function. Digestion itself is an energy-intensive process. When the stomach and intestines are actively breaking down food, absorbing nutrients, and coordinating with the liver and pancreas, the body remains in a state of metabolic activity. This activity competes with the repair processes that are meant to dominate nighttime physiology. The body cannot fully commit to restoration while it is still focused on processing a heavy meal. By allowing dinner to occur earlier in the evening, digestion can reach completion before sleep begins. This creates a metabolic environment in which the body can shift its resources from processing incoming energy to repairing existing tissues. One of the most powerful regenerative signals released during sleep is growth hormone. Often associated with childhood development, growth hormone continues to play a crucial role throughout adulthood. It supports muscle maintenance, stimulates fat metabolism, and promotes the repair of cells and tissues. Its release occurs primarily during the early stages of deep sleep, and this release is influenced by the metabolic state of the body. When blood sugar and insulin levels are elevated due to late-night eating, growth hormone secretion may be suppressed or delayed. This means that the body loses valuable opportunities for tissue repair and metabolic balance. Over months and years, reduced growth hormone activity contributes to loss of muscle mass, increased fat accumulation, and slower recovery from daily wear. The liver also responds to evening eating patterns in ways that influence long-term health. During the night, the liver performs essential functions related to detoxification and metabolic regulation. It processes byproducts of cellular metabolism, neutralizes harmful compounds, and prepares energy reserves for the following day. When the liver is occupied with digesting a late meal, its capacity to perform these maintenance tasks becomes limited. Instead of focusing on repair and detoxification, it must prioritize nutrient processing and glucose management. This shift may seem minor on a single night, but when repeated consistently, it alters the liver's ability to maintain metabolic balance. Over time, fat accumulation in liver tissue and disruptions in cholesterol regulation may emerge, contributing to broader metabolic decline. There is also a connection between evening metabolism and the quality of sleep itself. When digestion remains active late into the night, body temperature can remain slightly elevated. This interferes with the natural cooling process required for deep sleep initiation. The heart may continue working at a slightly higher rate, and the nervous system remains engaged in digestive coordination. As a result, sleep may become lighter and more fragmented. Even when total sleep time appears sufficient, the depth of restorative sleep may be reduced. This reduction affects not only energy levels the next day, but also the efficiency of cellular repair processes that depend on deep sleep stages. The timing of food intake influences circadian rhythms beyond digestion alone. Peripheral clocks located in organs such as the liver, pancreas, and intestines respond strongly to feeding schedules. When meals occur at consistent times aligned with daylight hours, these peripheral clocks synchronize with the central circadian clock in the brain. This synchronization supports efficient metabolism and hormonal balance. When meals are irregular or occur late at night, peripheral clocks become misaligned with the central clock. This internal desynchronization creates metabolic confusion, leading to inefficiencies in energy processing and increased oxidative stress within cells. Oxidative stress represents another pathway through which evening eating patterns influence aging. When the body processes nutrients, especially in large quantities, it generates reactive oxygen species as byproducts of metabolism. These molecules can damage cellular components if not neutralized by antioxidants and repair systems. During the night, when food intake is minimal, the body can focus on clearing these byproducts and restoring balance. Frequent late-night eating increases the production of reactive molecules at a time when the body is attempting to shift toward repair, creating a metabolic environment that favors gradual cellular damage. Beyond the biochemical mechanisms, there is a behavioral and psychological aspect to evening metabolism. Eating earlier often encourages a slower pace of evening living. It creates a natural boundary between nourishment and rest, allowing the mind to transition away from stimulation and toward reflection or relaxation. This psychological shift reinforces physiological readiness for sleep and repair. When eating continues late into the night, especially in conjunction with digital stimulation or stress, the body remains in a cycle of intake and alertness that delays entry into restorative states. The simple act of adjusting evening eating patterns carries profound implications for how the body allocates its resources. When digestion concludes earlier, hormonal rhythms align more closely with circadian design. Growth hormone rises without interference. Insulin levels stabilize, and the liver can devote attention to detoxification and metabolic regulation. Cells receive the message that external demands have ended and that internal maintenance can begin. Over time, this alignment reduces metabolic strain, lowers inflammatory activity, and supports the preservation of muscle, organ function, and overall vitality. The evening becomes not merely a time of reduced activity, but a carefully prepared gateway through which the body enters its most important period of renewal and regeneration. As the day unfolds, the human nervous system operates in a state designed for action. Every sound, decision, and responsibility activates networks that keep the body alert and responsive. This state, governed by the sympathetic branch of the nervous system, is essential for navigating daily life. It sharpens focus, elevates heart rate, and prepares muscles for movement. Yet the same system that allows productivity and survival during the day cannot sustain healing indefinitely. For restoration to occur, the body must gradually transition into the parasympathetic state, the mode of calm in which repair, digestion, and deep cellular maintenance become possible. Evening is the natural bridge between these two states, and the quality of this transition quietly shapes the pace at which the body ages. The parasympathetic system is often described as the body's rest and repair network, but its function extends beyond simple relaxation. When this system becomes dominant, heart rate slows, blood pressure stabilizes, and breathing deepens. Blood flow shifts toward the digestive organs and internal tissues, allowing nutrients and oxygen to reach areas undergoing repair. The brain reduces its vigilance toward external threats and begins organizing memories and emotional experiences. In this state, inflammatory signals decrease and anabolic processes, those responsible for rebuilding and strengthening tissues, become more active. The evening provides an opportunity for this shift to occur gradually and naturally, but only if the environment and behavior support it. Modern life often prolongs sympathetic activation well into the night. Bright lights, constant notifications, demanding schedules, and emotional stimulation keep the brain oriented toward activity rather than restoration. Even when physical movement slows, mental engagement can remain intense. The nervous system does not distinguish sharply between physical and psychological stress. Both maintain a level of internal alertness that prevents full entry into parasympathetic dominance. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, may remain elevated longer than intended. While cortisol is valuable in appropriate amounts, chronic elevation accelerates aging by increasing inflammation, impairing immune function, and disrupting sleep architecture. A gentle evening routine acts as a signal to the brain that the environment is safe enough to release its grip on constant vigilance. Safety, in physiological terms, allows the nervous system to shift toward repair. When the brain perceives reduced threat and reduced demand, it permits the parasympathetic system to become more influential. This shift does not occur instantly. It unfolds gradually through consistent cues. Soft lighting, slower movements, reduced noise, and intentional pauses create a sensory landscape that communicates calm. Over time, the nervous system learns to associate these cues with the onset of rest, allowing the transition to occur more smoothly. Breathing plays a central role in this transition. The rhythm and depth of breath directly influence the balance between sympathetic and parasympathetic activity. Rapid, shallow breathing is associated with alertness and stress, while slow, steady breathing activates neural pathways that encourage relaxation. During the evening, when breathing naturally becomes slower and more deliberate, signals travel through the vagus nerve, a key component of the parasympathetic system, informing the brain that conditions are stable. This vagal activation reduces heart rate variability associated with stress and promotes a state in which cellular repair processes can operate efficiently. Muscle tension also reflects and influences nervous system activity. Throughout the day, subtle contractions accumulate in response to posture, movement, and emotional stress. Shoulders may remain slightly elevated, the jaw gently clenched, the forehead subtly tightened. These tensions are often so habitual that they escape conscious awareness. When they persist into the evening, they send continuous feedback to the brain suggesting ongoing demand. Gentle stretching or slow movement in the evening releases this accumulated tension and alters the signals traveling back to the nervous system. As muscles relax, the brain interprets the change as a reduction in external pressure, allowing deeper entry into parasympathetic mode. The relationship between the nervous system and aging is profound. Chronic sympathetic dominance maintains the body in a state of low-grade stress, even in the absence of immediate threats. This state increases the production of inflammatory molecules that gradually damage tissues and impair cellular function. It also interferes with the production of hormones associated with repair and regeneration. Over time, the imbalance between stress-driven processes and repair-driven processes accelerates the visible and invisible markers of aging. By contrast, consistent activation of the parasympathetic system in the evening creates a hormonal environment that favors restoration. Growth hormone and melatonin function more effectively when cortisol levels decline, and immune cells shift toward maintenance rather than defense. Even the heart responds to this nightly transition. In a calm parasympathetic state, heart rhythms become more coherent and efficient. Blood vessels relax, improving circulation and reducing strain on the cardiovascular system. This nightly period of cardiovascular ease allows the heart and vessels to recover from the demands of daytime activity. When evenings remain stressful or overstimulating, heart rate and blood pressure may not decline as intended, increasing long-term cardiovascular risk. The simple act of allowing the nervous system to settle each evening becomes a form of preventative care for the heart and circulatory system. The digestive system is equally influenced by nervous system balance. Effective digestion requires parasympathetic dominance. When the body remains in a sympathetic state, digestive processes slow and become less efficient. Nutrient absorption may be compromised, and the gut environment can shift in ways that promote inflammation. A calm evening allows the digestive system to complete its work without interference, ensuring that nutrients are properly absorbed and that the gut lining receives adequate blood flow for maintenance and repair. Given the growing understanding of the gut's role in immunity and overall health, this nightly digestive restoration contributes significantly to long-term vitality. There is also an emotional dimension to this physiological shift. The nervous system stores impressions of the day not only as memories but as patterns of activation. Unresolved stress or emotional tension can maintain sympathetic dominance long after the external events have passed. Evening reflection, quiet conversation, or simple moments of stillness allow the brain to process these impressions and release what is no longer necessary. When emotional experiences are acknowledged and integrated, the nervous system receives permission to relax. This emotional settling reduces nighttime stress signaling and allows deeper, more restorative sleep cycles to occur. Consistency strengthens these effects. When evenings follow a predictable pattern of gradual slowing, the nervous system begins to anticipate rest in the same way it anticipates activity each morning. This anticipation reduces the effort required to transition between states. Over time, the body learns to move into parasympathetic dominance more efficiently, allowing repair processes to begin earlier and operate more effectively. The cumulative effect of these nightly transitions shapes the body's long-term resilience, influencing how quickly tissues recover, how efficiently the immune system functions, and how gracefully the body adapts to the passage of time. Within this quiet window of evening calm, the body is offered an opportunity to release the tension of constant alertness and return to its natural rhythm of restoration. The nervous system, when gently guided towards stillness, becomes a powerful ally in slowing the processes that lead to premature aging and imbalance. As night deepens and the body surrenders to sleep, the brain begins one of its most remarkable and least visible processes, a form of internal cleansing that determines how clearly we think, how steadily we feel, and how gracefully we age. During waking hours, the brain is constantly active, consuming energy, processing information, and generating countless chemical reactions. This activity produces metabolic waste, including proteins and molecular fragments that, if allowed to accumulate, can interfere with neural communication and gradually damage brain cells. The removal of this waste does not occur efficiently while we are awake. It is during deep sleep, particularly in the earlier cycles of the night, that the brain activates a specialized clearance network often referred to as the glymphatic system. This system functions as a kind of nighttime maintenance pathway. Cerebrospinal fluid begins to move more freely through brain tissue, washing through spaces between neurons and carrying away byproducts of daily activity. This flow is not random. It follows specific channels that expand during deep sleep. As these channels open, waste products are transported out of the brain and toward areas where they can be broken down or removed. Among these byproducts are proteins associated with long-term cognitive decline when they accumulate excessively. Their efficient removal depends on consistent, uninterrupted deep sleep cycles. When sleep is fragmented or delayed, this cleansing process becomes less effective, allowing metabolic debris to linger within neural tissue. The timing of sleep onset plays a crucial role in this process. The brain's cleaning cycle aligns with circadian rhythms that dictate when deep sleep is most accessible. Early nighttime hours tend to contain the highest proportion of slow-wave sleep, the stage most strongly associated with glymphatic activity. When sleep begins late or is preceded by intense stimulation, the proportion of deep sleep may decrease. Even if total sleep duration appears sufficient, the reduction in deep sleep limits the effectiveness of nighttime cleansing. Over months and years, this subtle inefficiency can influence memory, concentration, and emotional regulation. Light exposure in the evening directly affects the brain's readiness for deep sleep. Bright artificial light, particularly from screens, suppresses melatonin production and delays the internal signal that initiates sleep. Without adequate melatonin, the brain remains in a semi-alert state that postpones entry into slow-wave sleep. The cleansing system depends on this deeper stage to function optimally. A dim, calm evening environment allows melatonin levels to rise naturally, preparing neural pathways for the shift into restorative cycles. The reduction of sensory stimulation acts as a signal that external demands have ended, allowing internal maintenance to begin. Neural activity patterns also change dramatically during deep sleep. While waking consciousness involves rapid and varied electrical signals across brain regions, deep sleep produces slower, more synchronized waves. These slow oscillations appear to facilitate the movement of cerebrospinal fluid through brain tissue. The gentle pulsing of these waves creates pressure changes that help drive fluid through the glymphatic channels. This rhythmic activity not only supports waste removal, but also allows neural networks to recalibrate. Synaptic connections formed during the day are reviewed and refined, strengthening those associated with learning and discarding those that are unnecessary. This nightly reorganization improves cognitive efficiency and prevents the brain from becoming overloaded with redundant information. Stress and mental overstimulation in the evening can interfere with these neural transitions. When the mind remains highly engaged with complex information, emotional content, or constant digital input, brainwave patterns associated with alertness persist longer into the night. The shift towards slower, synchronized waves may be delayed, reducing the duration of deep sleep phases. This delay does not always manifest as obvious insomnia. It may simply result in lighter, less restorative sleep. Over time, the cumulative effect of reduced deep sleep can influence cognitive aging, emotional resilience, and the brain's ability to adapt to new information. Temperature regulation contributes to the brain's nightly cleansing as well. A slight drop in core body temperature supports the onset of deep sleep and the expansion of glymphatic channels. Environments that are too warm or behaviors that keep metabolism elevated late into the night can interfere with this cooling process. When the body cools naturally, blood flow patterns shift in ways that favor internal repair. The brain becomes less focused on external responsiveness and more engaged in maintenance and restoration. This subtle physiological cooling signals that it is safe to enter deeper states of unconsciousness, where cleansing and reorganization can occur efficiently. Hydration levels influence the movement of cerebrospinal fluid through the brain. Adequate hydration during the day supports optimal fluid balance within neural tissues, ensuring that the glymphatic system has sufficient medium through which to transport waste. However, excessive fluid intake immediately before sleep may disrupt rest through frequent awakenings. A balanced approach to hydration earlier in the day supports nighttime brain maintenance without fragmenting sleep. This balance illustrates how daytime habits quietly prepare the brain for its nocturnal restoration. Emotional processing also intertwines with the brain's physical cleansing. During sleep, particularly in cycles that include both deep and dream stages, the brain integrates emotional experiences from the day. Neural circuits associated with memory and feeling interact, allowing experiences to be stored in ways that reduce their emotional intensity while preserving their informational value. When this process occurs effectively, the mind awakens with greater clarity and emotional equilibrium. When sleep is disrupted or insufficiently deep, emotional residues may remain unresolved, contributing to heightened stress responses and mental fatigue. Over time, unresolved emotional activation can influence neural health and accelerate cognitive aging. The long-term implications of consistent brain cleansing extend beyond memory and focus. Efficient removal of metabolic waste reduces oxidative stress within neural tissue, protecting delicate structures from cumulative damage. It supports the health of synapses, the communication points between neurons, and preserves the flexibility of neural networks that allow learning and adaptation throughout life. A brain that undergoes regular, thorough maintenance retains its capacity for creativity, problem solving, and emotional balance well into later years. Even subtle evening habits can influence this process, reducing sensory overload, allowing moments of quiet reflection, and creating a predictable transition into sleep all contribute to the brain's readiness for deep restorative cycles. These habits signal to the nervous system that vigilance is no longer required, enabling neural activity to slow and synchronize. As this synchronization deepens, the pathways for cerebrospinal fluid movement open more fully, and the nightly cleansing begins with greater efficiency. Within the darkness of each night, beyond conscious awareness, the brain engages in a delicate choreography of cleansing, repair, and renewal that shapes cognitive vitality and emotional steadiness across the years. As evening settles and the external demands of the day begin to fade, the human body carries with it more than physical fatigue. It carries emotional impressions, subtle tensions, and unprocessed experiences that have accumulated hour by hour. These experiences do not simply disappear when the day ends. They are stored within neural circuits, hormonal patterns, and even muscular tension. The way these emotional residues are handled during the evening quietly influences the body's internal chemistry and, over time, the pace at which it ages. Emotional processing is not merely a psychological event. It is a biological necessity that allows the nervous system to return to balance and prepares the body for deep restorative states during the night. Throughout the day, the brain continuously interprets and responds to events. Each interaction, decision, or unexpected challenge activates neural pathways linked to emotion and stress regulation. When experiences are intense or prolonged, stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline rise to support immediate adaptation. These hormones are essential for short-term responsiveness, but they are not designed to remain elevated indefinitely. If emotional experiences are not acknowledged and integrated, the physiological responses associated with them may persist into the evening. The nervous system remains subtly activated, as though unfinished tasks or unresolved tensions still require attention. This lingering activation prevents the full transition into parasympathetic dominance, the state in which repair and regeneration occur most effectively. The body does not distinguish sharply between physical and emotional stress. Both activate similar biochemical pathways and produce comparable physiological effects. Elevated cortisol levels increase blood sugar, raise heart rate, and stimulate inflammatory signaling. While these responses are adaptive during acute challenges, chronic elevation contributes to gradual wear on tissues and organs. Over time, sustained inflammatory activity accelerates cellular aging by damaging proteins, lipids, and DNA. Evening emotional processing provides an opportunity to reduce these signals before sleep begins, allowing stress hormones to decline and restorative hormones to rise. Reflection plays a central role in this process. When the mind is given a quiet space to review the day without judgment or urgency, neural circuits associated with memory and emotion begin to organize experiences into coherent patterns. This organization reduces the need for ongoing vigilance. The brain recognizes that events have been processed and stored appropriately, allowing stress responses to subside. Without this reflective pause, experiences may remain in a state of partial activation, continuing to influence physiological responses long after the events themselves have passed. The simple act of acknowledging what has occurred, both positive and challenging, signals completion to the nervous system. Gratitude and appreciation introduce an additional dimension to emotional regulation. When attention shifts toward experiences that evoke calm or appreciation, neural activity changes in measurable ways. Regions associated with reward and emotional stability become more active, while areas linked to threat detection become less dominant. This shift influences the autonomic nervous system, encouraging parasympathetic activity and reducing inflammatory signaling. Heart rate variability, a marker of nervous system balance and resilience, often improves when individuals engage in reflective appreciation. Improved heart rate variability is associated with better cardiovascular health, stronger immune function, and greater adaptability to stress. Over time, these physiological benefits contribute to slower biological aging. Muscular tension often mirrors emotional states. Even when emotional stress is not consciously recognized, the body may hold subtle contractions in the neck, shoulders, jaw, or abdomen. These contractions send continuous feedback to the brain, reinforcing a state of mild alertness. Gentle awareness of bodily sensations in the evening allows these tensions to be noticed and gradually released. As muscles relax, the feedback traveling to the brain shifts, signaling that the environment is safe and that defensive readiness is no longer required. This change supports the decline of stress hormones and the rise of restorative processes. The heart also responds sensitively to emotional processing. Emotional experiences influence heart rhythm patterns through complex interactions between the brain and cardiovascular system. When stress remains unresolved, heart rhythms may become irregular or less coherent, reflecting ongoing sympathetic activation. Calm reflection and emotional integration encourage more stable and harmonious heart rhythms. These patterns support efficient circulation and reduce strain on the cardiovascular system. Over years, consistent periods of evening emotional settling contribute to reduced risk of cardiovascular disease and support long-term vitality. Sleep quality is deeply influenced by the state of emotional processing before bed. When the mind enters sleep with unresolved tension or heightened stress, nighttime brain activity may remain elevated. Dreams may become more intense or fragmented, and deep sleep phases may be shortened. During deep sleep, the body performs essential repair functions, including immune regulation, hormonal balance, and cellular restoration. Emotional calm before sleep allows the brain to enter these deep stages more smoothly and remain within them for longer durations. This extended deep sleep enhances tissue repair, supports memory consolidation, and allows the nervous system to recalibrate. There is also a cumulative aspect to emotional processing. Each evening offers an opportunity to clear the psychological residue of the day. When this clearing occurs consistently, the nervous system begins each new day with less accumulated stress. This reduces baseline cortisol levels and lowers the likelihood of chronic inflammatory activation. Over months and years, the cumulative reduction in stress signaling preserves cellular integrity and supports more efficient metabolic function. Individuals who engage in regular emotional reflection often experience greater resilience, not because challenges disappear, but because the body recovers from them more effectively. The relationship between emotional balance and immune function further illustrates the biological importance of evening reflection. Chronic stress suppresses certain aspects of immune response while promoting inflammatory activity. This imbalance increases vulnerability to illness and slows recovery from injury. When emotional tension is released and parasympathetic activity rises, immune cells shift toward maintenance and repair. They clear damaged components, regulate inflammatory responses, and prepare the body to respond efficiently to future challenges. The immune system, like other systems, relies on periods of calm to perform its most precise work. Consistency in evening emotional processing strengthens its effects. When reflection, gratitude, or quiet presence becomes a regular part of the evening rhythm, the brain begins to anticipate this period of release. Anticipation itself reduces stress signaling, as the nervous system learns that there will be a dedicated time for integration and calm. This expectation allows emotional experiences to be held more lightly throughout the day, knowing they will be processed later. Over time, this pattern fosters a stable internal environment in which stress responses arise when necessary but do not linger unnecessarily. The human body thrives on completion. Just as digestion must complete before metabolic repair can begin, emotional experiences must settle before deep physiological restoration can occur. Evening provides a natural boundary between the outward engagement of the day and the inward restoration of the night. Within this boundary lies an opportunity to release accumulated tension, organize memories, and restore emotional equilibrium. When the mind settles, breathing deepens, heart rhythms stabilize, and hormonal patterns shift toward renewal. The body, sensing that both physical and emotional demands have eased, enters the night prepared for the intricate work of healing and regeneration that unfolds in quiet darkness.